Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with a little bit of a melody. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. Yisrael, ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. Yisrael, ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. Most of us are familiar with the Ma Tovu, and there are many different melodies. Remembering the Ma Tovu comes from the Torah, and it speaks of the beauty of each individual Jewish home. In the ancient days, it was the home of an Israelite. We today call it Jewish. Your homes, because of who you are, possess a beauty. And as we're remaining cloistered and quarantined, we need to remind ourselves of the intrinsic beauty within each and every home, part of the Jewish community. And it's your home because of who you are and your values and your behavior as Jews that makes a lasting impression in your home and your home, connected to all of our homes that are part of our shul, are all part of Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov. If you have a talis, you're invited to join me. Remember, the last few words are Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehit teif b'tzitzit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu litatef b'tzitzit. Turning to the Siddur, on page number 99, it's a very powerful message. In Hebrew, it's known as Elohai Neshama. And it speaks of your soul and my soul. As you remember, just as in Spanish and in French, nouns and adjectives in Hebrew are marked as masculine or feminine. The word nishama is a soul, nishama. Nishama ends in the ah sound, like the word Torah and mitzvah. When you hear a Hebrew word that ends in an ah sound, 99% of the time it's a feminine noun. Torah is considered feminine. Mitzvah is considered feminine. Nishama is considered feminine. There are a number of other words in this little prayer that convey, you might call it, a matching nature, a feminine quality. And in Hebrew, it's that sound ah. And as you say ah, you breathe out a little bit. And it sensitizes me to the soul, which is the breath. In and out, in and out. And you can hear the breath. I'm exaggerating for you to hear it, but it's conveyed in the Hebrew. We're going to try it in the English, and you'll see it. It's on the end of every word that is vocalized it on page 99. My God, the soul that you have given me is pure. You created it. You formed it. You breathed it into me. You watch over it when it is in me. In the future, you will take it from me, but then restore it to me in the world that is coming. As long as the soul is within me, I thank you, Adonai, my God, God of my ancestors, ruler of all creation, master of all souls. Baruch atah Adonai, who restores the soul to the lifeless form. We rise, pages 103 and 104, the Birchot Shachar, the early morning blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech v'ivino lavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. The top of 104. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokach haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asa li kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten lo yoef koach. Unenu yom v'chol yom lachenu chesed rachamim beinecha unecha roenu v'tiglenu chasedim tovim baruch atah Adonai gomel chasam Yisrael. As we're seated, a small meditation on 109 in the upper left corner. The students of Rabbi Ishmael interpreted the words of the prophet of Jeremiah found in the Bible. So the students of Rabbi Ishmael are interpreting this phrase from the Bible. My words are like fire, Adonai says, and as a hammer that splits a rock. Words are like fire and a hammer that splits a rock. And this is the interpretation by the rabbi students. Just as a hammer splinters the rock into numerous fragments, so too are the words of Torah open to many meanings. The words of Torah are open to many meanings. Within our Jewish legacy is built in the essential perspective that every person can and shall study Torah. We're supposed to unearth the meanings of our tradition. Don't be satisfied by one rabbi's single approach or one rabbi's specific perspective or one teacher's version. Continue to learn and struggle and ask questions and promote interchange. The essence of Judaism is asking and studying. We are hardwired to ask questions. Don't ever be content. There's a thirst and a hunger to learn and to probe. On page 112, the Psalm for Shabbat. Mizmor shir liyom HaShabbat tov lodot l'Adonai ulezamer l'shimcha elyon ulezamer l'shimcha elyon lahagid baboker chastecha ve'emunatcha b'leilot alei asor v'alei navel alei higayon bechinor mizmor shir liyom HaShabbat Toledot ladonai, olezamer lishimcha elyon, olezamer lishimcha elyon. Kisimach tananai b'falecha, b'maaseh yadecha aranen, magalo maaseh charanai maod, amku machshavotecha. Mizmor shir liyom Shabbat, Toledot ladonai, olezamer lishimcha elyon, olezamer lishimcha elyon. The arrogant do not understand, the fool does not comprehend this. The wicked flourish like grass, and every evildoer blossoms, only to be destroyed forever. But you, Adonai, you, God, are exalted for all time. Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered. As a wild bull raises up its horn, you raised my head high, anointed it with fresh oil. As my enemies gather against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen and hear. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. The righteous flourish in our God's courtyards. In old age they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming, Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no flaw. And on page 113, this psalm recited during this season of the year, it's Psalm 27. In Hebrew it's called Le David, of or by David. Adonai Ori, God is my light, V'yish-i, my help. God is my light and my help. And we recite it for an entire month leading up to Rosh Hashanah. Then we continue on into Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the first 6 days of Sukkot, for a grand total of 6.5 weeks. Adonai is my light and my help. Whom shall I fear? Adonai is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evil people assail me to devour my flesh, my enemies and those who besiege me, it is they who stumble and fall. Should an armed camp be arrayed against me, my heart would show no fear. If they were to go to war against me, of this I would be sure. One thing I ask of God, this is what I seek, to dwell in the house of God all the days of my life, to behold God's peacefulness, and to be in God's own sanctuary. Achat shalti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Achat shalti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai. Lachazot bin Noam Adonai olavaker behechalo. Lachazot bin Noam Adonai olavaker behechalo. I need something, God. I need the sense that you and I are in the same space. You and I are in contact with each other. And if I have that sense deep within me that you and I are together on the same wavelength, then I can make it through all the challenges and the conflicts, external to me and internal within me. Page 122, the Baruch She'amar. Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Hoseh v'reshit Baruch Omer v'oseh Baruch Gozer u'mekayim Baruch merachem al haaretz Baruch merachem al habriot Baruch mishalem sachar tov lireav Baruch chaylad v'kayam lanetzach Baruch podeh umatzil Baruch Shemo. Blessed are you, God, sovereign, celebrated with songs of praise. Yachid Cheho Olamim Melech Mishbach Mufawar Adonai Shemo Hagadol Baruch Atarnoi Melech Malabati Ishbachot. Ashrei is on page 136. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitacha Od Yalucha Selah. Ashrei Shekachalo, Ashrei Sharonoi Elohav, Tehillah David, Aramim Chalahai HaMelech, Vavarcha Shimcha Leolam Voed, B'chol Yom Avarcheka, Va'ahalala Shimcha Leolam Voed, Gadol Arnoi Molal Mod, V'lig Dulato Ein Cheker, Dolador Yishabach Masecha, Ugvorotecha yagidu, hadar kavod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha, ve'ezus nor otecha yomeru, ugedulatcha asapreno, zecherav tuvacha yabiu, v'tzidkatecha yiranenu, chanun rachum Adonai, erech apayim ugdol chased, tov Adonai lakol, V'chamav al kol ma'asav, yodu charanoi kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yevarchucha, kavod malchutcha yomeru, u'gavoratecha yedaberu, lo dia livnei hadam gvurotav, u'chavod hadar malchuto, malchutcha malchut kol olamim, u'mem shaltecha b'chol dor v'dor, somech Adonai l'chol hanoflim, V'zokef l'chol ha'kfufim, enei chol alechi yisaberu, v'ata noten lehem et hachlam bi'ito, poteach et yadecha, u'maspia l'chol charatzon, tzadik Adonai b'chol drachov, v'chasid b'chol ma'asav, karov Adonai l'chol korov, l'chol asher k'uhu v'emet, ritzon re'av ya'aseh, V'yet shav atam yishma v'yoshiem, shomer Adonai et kol avav, v'yet kol harshaim yashmid, tilat Adonai yidaber pi, v'vorech kol basar shem gachalom voed, v'anachnu nevarech yah me'ata v'yad olam, hallelujah. Sing and praise. Hallelujah means y'all praise. Yah is an abbreviation of the name Adonai. Hallelujah, y'all praise God. On page 141, this is the last psalm in the book of Psalms, which comes from the Bible, 150 psalms in the Bible. Last psalm, and we sing it or recite it or chant it every single day of the year. I think it's a way of symbolically, if we had the time and the patience, chanting and singing the entire book of Psalms, which would take hours, and nobody's going to do that. Hallelujah, hallelujah, el bikadsho, hallelujah, brikiauzo, hallelujah, vigvurotav, hallelujah, karov gulo, hallelujah, beteka shofar, hallelujah, benevel v'chinor, hallelujah, betof umachol, hallelujah, b'minim v'ugav, hallelujah, betziltzalei shema, hallelujah, betziltzalei trua, kol hanshama te'halel hallelujah, kol hanshama te'halel hallelujah, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, la 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 la, kol hanshama te'halel hallelujah, kol hanshama te'halel hallelujah. And perhaps you caught the term beteka shofar, and teka is connected to the word tekiah. We all know tekiah, which is one long blast. Teka and tekiah, it's the same word in Hebrew. Teka shofar. And we also have the word betziltzalei teruah. And teruah, as you recall, is the name of the 9 short, the staccato. For the past 2,000 years, 3 different blasts of the shofar. Tekiah is 1 long, Shivarim is 3 mediums, and Teruah is 9 staccato. You and I think, tend to associate Tekiah and Teruah with Rosh Hashanah. And that's very appropriate, of course. But it may also have been that in the very ancient times, 3,000 some years ago, that on some occasions, separate from Rosh Hashanah, the shofar was sounded. This psalm gives us a glimpse of that. In some way, the shofar was sounded exultantly, enthusiastically, with a sense of excitement and happiness. Praise God with the teikah, with the tekiah of the shofar. Praise God with the tziltzaleh, the sounds of the teruah, the staccato. We say, sing, recite, chant this psalm every single day of the year. And of course, in Rosh Hashanah, we say it and sing it every single day of the year as well. And also on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And in the Musaf Hamida of Rosh Hashanah, we say this psalm. So on Rosh Hashanah day, we actually say it twice. And in that context of the Musaf Hamida for Rosh Hashanah, we're saying it because the word shofar makes us think about Rosh Hashanah. Shochenad on page 147. Shochenad morom v'kadosh shemo v'chatuv raneno tzadikim baronoi laisharim nava Tehillah b'fi yesharim tithalal uv'divrei tzadikim titbarach uv'elshon chasidim titramam uv'kerev kedoshim titkadash uv'makalat rivavot amcha beit Yisrael. Lodo lahalel, l'shabech l'fael, l'romem lahader, l'varech l'leukales. Al kol divrei shua b'tish b'chot David ben Yishai. Avdecha meshichecha, top of 148. Yishtabach shimcha lo'ad malkeinu. Ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol v'akadosh b'shamayim u'va'aretz. Ki lecha noe Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloi avoteinu ve'imotenu shir u'shvacha halel v'zimra ozu memshala netzach gedula u'gvura tehila v'tiferet kedusha malchut brachot v'orot me'ata v'ad olam baruch atah Adonai el melech gadol v'tishbachot el Odot Adonai Niflot Habocher B'Shirei Zimra Melech Elchei Olamim. Please rise, Birkat HaOr on page 150. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or vorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, forming light and creating darkness, bringing harmony while creating all. And as we're seated on page 153. On the English side, near the bottom, it's the red arrow at the very bottom of the page. In God's goodness, the work of creation is renewed Each day, in Hebrew we say, Hamachadesh b'tuva b'choyim tamid maser breshit. Every single day, God is making breshit. Every day, God's making breshit. In God's goodness, the work of creation is renewed each day. As the psalmist declared, thank the creator of the great lights, for God's love is everlasting. Cause a new light to shine on Sion, and may we all soon be worthy of its illumination. Blessed are you, God, creator of lights. Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, 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 Venizke Chulanu Mehera Leoro, Venizke Chulanu Mehera Leoro, Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer Hamorot. On page 154. This bracha is named Ahava Rabbah. Most Jewish prayers are named by the first word or two words of that prayer. So this bracha, and it's a bracha because it ends with Baruch atah. So this bracha is called Ahava Rabbah, which means great love. And the first few lines speak of, I think, on a poetic level, the tone, the context, the globe of this experience. That with great love, O God, you loved us and you symbolically brought us out of Egypt and you brought us to Mount Sinai. But the bottom stanza, which is marked by the little red arrow, both on the Hebrew and the English, is not speaking of the past, it's speaking of the present every single day. So since the first part of the bracha talks about the past, the second part talks about the future. And the future is every single day. And tomorrow we'll say this, and the next day we'll say it. Every day is a day of future. And we gather the four tzitziot together. And we say, oh God, bring us together in safety and peace. The message from the past on into the ever-growing and developing future is our need for peace, our need that we all belong, that we're all integrated into some whole, some unit of completion and safety. And in light of the recent attack on the Kabul airport, where more than 170 people were murdered, where 13 American service members were murdered as they were caring for civilians, reminds us of our absolute need for safety and being in a place where we're all together in a sense of security and peace. So join me in the English on page 154. Bring us safely from the four corners of the earth and lead us in dignity to our land, for you are the God who effects deliverance. You've chosen us from all other tongues and peoples, always drawing us nearer to your name, that we may truly acknowledge you and lovingly proclaim your oneness. Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, God, who lovingly and cares for the people of Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, habacher b'Yisrael b'Ahava. Page 155. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'yavto et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'otecha v'hayo hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shachbecha v'kumecha u'kishartam lot al yadecha v'hayula totafot b'neinecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'sharecha. The middle of 156. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael v'marta lehem v'asu lehem tzitzit al kanfei v'gdeihem l'dorotam v'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf b'til techelet v'yalachem l'tzitzit v'ritem oto u'schartem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam Flotaturo acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem asher atem zonim achareihem l'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kadoshim l'Elohechem ani Elohechem asher tzeti etchem eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem l'Elohim ani Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 157, there are 4 small stanzas beginning with the word truly, reading only those 4 small stanzas in the English. Truly, the God of the universe, our sovereign, is the stronghold of Jacob and our protecting shield. Truly, you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors, our sovereign and our ancestors' sovereign, our Redeemer and our ancestors' Redeemer. You are our Creator and the rock of our deliverance, our Redeemer and help. So you are known throughout time, for there is no God but you. Truly, you are the ruler of your people, Almighty Sovereign who takes up their cause. Truly, you are at the beginning, and you will be at the end. Aside from you, we have no ruler who can redeem and deliver. On page 158 in the center, Michamocha. Michamocha, Boelim Adonai, Mikamocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Naratilot, Osefelem, Shirach Harasha, Shibchu Geulim, Leshimcha Safat Hayam, Yachad Kulam Hoduvim Lechuv Yamro, Adonai Yimloch Leolam Vaed, Tzur Yisrael, Kuma Ezrat Yisrael, Upadech Nemecha, Yudava Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzavot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. We rise for the Amida, beginning aloud on pages 159 and 160. Excuse me, I don't intend to be rude by turning my back to you, but today I want to focus my attention upon the Aron, the Ark, not just because the doors are beautiful and I always enjoy looking at them, but because I know what's inside, the Sifrei Torah, our Torah scrolls. And you might consider symbolically that your and our shared singing and prayers today, this day, are merging with the words of Torah. Send your singing and your praying and your thoughts, your private thoughts, into the Ark. Beginning aloud on pages 159 and 160, thereafter a few moments of silence, the traditional text concludes on 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Vanara El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei Hakol V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot Umevi Goel Livnei V'nehem L'man Shmo B'yava Melech Ozer U'faker Mashiach Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Abraham U'faked Sarah Al Tagibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye Meitim Ata Rav L'Hoshia Mechakel Chayim B'Chesed Mechaye Meitim B'Rachamim Rabim Samek Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim Omatir Asurim Omekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Micha Mocha Bal Gevurot Omidam Melach Melech Mimit Umechaye Umatmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Atalach Chayol Meitim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayei HaMeitim. In just a moment, we shall rise and open the Ark on page 168. It's Vayhi bin Soa, and if you're still meditating or davening, please continue on. But we shall now rise for the Ark opening on page 168, Vayhi bin Soa. Vayehi bin Soa ha'aron, vayomer Moshe, kuma Adonai, v'yafutzu oyevecha, v'yanusu misanecha, mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udavar Adonai Mirushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah La'amo Yisrael B'kedushato.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu
Gadol
Gadol
Adonenu
Kadosh.
Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai Tinu Ramama Shmo Yaakov. L'cha Adonai Hagedula v'Hagibura v'Tiferet v'Hanetzach v'Hod Kichol b'Shamayim u'Ba'aretz Kichol b'Shamayim u'Ba'aretz L'cha Adonai Hamamlacha v'Minaseh l'chol rosh Romemo Romemo Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Romemo Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu Lehar Kodsho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Yishar Koach, Gadiel. And yes, obviously we have the Torah covers, white, as we are anticipating Rosh Hashanah. Tonight is Slichas, and for the past number of years, we've had a little ceremony, you might say, of putting the high holiday Torah covers on the Torahs on Slichas, but we don't have a gathering tonight in the building, so we wouldn't have people to enjoy and join in and celebratorily, as a group, help to undress the Torahs with their normal garb and put the white garb upon. And so I did this yesterday because tonight we have Slichas at 7:30 on Zoom, and everybody in the shul received an email yesterday with the information for logging into Slichas. And everybody who's ever joined in on the Havdalah for the past year and a half has received the same login information at 7:30 tonight. We are joining in with Montgomery and Auburn and individual Jewish people from Dothan and other parts of the state of Alabama and beyond for a special program. And Rabbi Kramer, the conservative rabbi in Montgomery who initiated this program, will be speaking a little bit. We have Cantor Neil Schwartz of Dothan and Chazan Charles Barron from Boca Raton, and Yehuda Silverwolf, Aaron Yehuda, plays guitar, and Miriam Wyman, of Auburn, who plays guitar and has a beautiful voice. Turia Stark, also from Auburn, plays guitar and has a beautiful voice. And we'll be singing to prepare for Slichas. And now we're about to study a little bit of Torah. On page 1142, if you have the Chumash, pardon me, page 1142, it's Deuteronomy chapter 26, verses 12 through 15. Moses is speaking to the people of Israel. Some last reminders, because in a little while, the Torah will indicate that Moses dies, and Joshua will lead the people of Israel into the promised land. And Moses is instructing the people in how to live their daily lives. There's a phrase that occurs in this brief passage twice. It's only 3 sentences long, and the same words appear twice. First, a little bit of Hebrew. The word ger. Ger in the ancient days meant stranger. When you live in the deep south, you can say, oh, you're not from around here, are you? Which is a polite way of saying, how long do you plan on staying? And are you going to take up too much of my space? Are you going to interfere in my life? Or maybe you need to just run on, move on somewhere else. We once were Geirim, strangers, living in the land of Egypt. And although later in that experience we were enslaved, in the early stages, for potentially 190 years, we were living within the community. We were taken in from the time of Jacob and Joseph, and we lived and prospered. We know what it's like to be a stranger. We know how tough it can be to not fit in and be told to move on along. And so the word ger here is a message that we have to reach out to anyone and everyone. Not enemies. Don't be a fool. But if somebody wants to live amidst and to contribute and be part of the community, we are commanded by Torah and by God to receive the ger. Yatom means an orphan. And again, in the ancient days, if you were an orphan, you were on the edge of existence, of fading away. You had no real means of support. And also a widow, almanah. If you were a widow, maybe you were strong enough to handle working in the field on your own or taking care of the animals, but doubtful. So Moses in this speech commands us on behalf of God to care for the ger, yatom, almanah, the stranger, the widow, and the orphan. And by the way, folks, this mitzvah is repeated 35 times, a grand total of 36 times in the Torah. It's the most often stated mitzvah in the Torah, double chai. Care for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. There are a few occasions when this phrase is modified, and that happens here in our Torah reading, and it adds one more word. It's Levi. And you know what a Levi is, the assistant to the Kohen. In the ancient days, the Levi didn't have any land of his own. He lived in villages scattered throughout the length and breadth of the land of Israel, and he had a small garden. It's mentioned in the Torah, he had a small garden, but he was also just barely making by, because his goal was to offer support and religious leadership and guidance and care to everybody in the neighborhood. And so everybody in the neighborhood had to bring a little bit of food or produce, or occasionally maybe one animal born of his or her own flock, to the local Levi. And that's what's going on here. So you hear the term Levi, ger, yatom, va'almanah, Levi, stranger, orphan, and widow, repeatedly. And now the Torah reading for the day. Ki tichale laser ekol masar tvuotcha bashana hashlishit shnat hamaser v'natata la Levi la ger la yatom v'la almana v'achlu bisharecha b'sabeu amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha bi'arti HaKadosh min habayit v'gam netativ La Levi, v'la ger, la yatom v'la almana, k'chol mitzvotcha asher tzii bitani, lo avarti mitzvotecha v'lo shachachti, lo achalti v'oni mimenu, v'lo bi'arti mimenu batamei, v'lo natati mimenu lamet, shamati b'kol Adonai Elohai, asiti k'chol asher tzii bitani. Hashkifa mimon katshecha min hashamayim uvarechet amchat Yisrael v'ta'adama asher natat alanu kasher nishpat l'avotenu eretz zavat chalav u'devash. And I want to point out one more phrase which is incredibly powerful to me. Twice, yes, I promise, I will give to the Levi, the person who's depending upon me, and the widow and the orphan and the stranger, because they have no social security, they have no WIC, they have no SNAP, they have no TANF. All they have is the neighbors, the Israelites helping one another. And then this phrase is, "O God, look down from your heavenly abode and bless your people, all of Israel, and the land which you gave to everyone because you promised our ancestors." So I want you to follow the equation. This is Math 613. Number one, I, God, have already guaranteed to support everybody else who's in need. The widow, the orphan, the stranger, the Levi, people who have no social welfare net. I've reached out, and because I have done my part to make at least my small part of the world better, you have to fill your blessings to the entire nation of Israel and the entire land of Israel. In effect, one person makes a difference. I want you to understand the power that you have to bring God into the entire physical world and God into the entire spiritual experience of everyone who is in need, who is in despair. You can say, God, I've done my part. Now it's up to you, God, to do your universal part. And multiply that out by the presumed tens of thousands of Israelites who, on their own occasion, based upon their own conscience, at varying seasons throughout the year, harvested their various crops and their produce, and shared crops and produce, and occasionally the offspring of livestock with someone who didn't have enough. Bear in mind the significance of one farmer, one peasant, sharing of his own meager quantities with somebody else, and then standing up in the presence of the tabernacle and saying, God, I did my part, now it's up to you. And you and I can do that nowadays with tzedakah. Most of us don't have cattle and sheep in our backyards. Maybe we do. Most of us have perhaps a garden for pleasure or satisfaction. And perhaps we do share our cucumbers and our okra and our squash with others. But I think for the majority of us, the main means of giving out tzedakah is with financial support and showing up in person. And we can add a new layer of significance to our giving of tzedakah by saying, okay, God, I've done my part, now it's your turn to care for the entire world. We offer a mishaberach for those who are ill in our community. And my thoughts turn to the people who have been attacked in Kabul with the explosion. And this is a specific prayer for healing those who are injured and those who are wounded. And unfortunately, we have seen great flooding lately in Tennessee and other, again, ongoing still, incredibly destructive fires throughout much of the United States. And we're anticipating, unfortunately, Tropical Storm or Hurricane Ida. We realize how many of our people, and they're our people, Irrelevant is ethnicity or religion. The Arab people are at risk. And we mention the names of those known to us, and we call out on behalf of those whose names happen to not be upon our lips. And we say, Mi sheber chavtenu av v'mitzvah v'mitenu sorov k'rachav le'ah hivrak peh cholim elev v'zekolel et Amelia Rose bat Amenajin Chanasar bat Peshalea Avram Yehuda ben Gisha bet De Palma LaClaudia Thomas Sprinza Babashi Miriam Babashi George Barton Monica Winton Shoshana bat Millie Yaakov Avram ben Chana, Caleb bat Shoshana, Yosef bat Vega, David Shlomo ben Tova Nachum ben Yamin, Robin Meir, Chana bat Meredith, Avi Moshe ben Mendochana, Tom Bastoni, Henry Macon, Billy Singleton, Cherie Singleton, Pat Cockrell, Karnia Chaya bat Sarimenu, George Patinos, Mordechai ben Zelda, Manakanite, Elalea bat Aviva, Mickey bat Cecilia, Yinta bat Gisha, bet Kulam, Sheni Scream. Mehera refuah shlemim neshamaim v'nefesh v'guf, b'tok shar cholim, v'et ha'ptzuim, v'chazek et yidei ha'oskim b'tzorchehem Shabbati, refuah krova lavo hashta, b'aksvanwar, amen. Almighty God, for you have blessed our ancestors, mothers, and fathers, our loved ones in times gone past. Quickly and speedily bring forth your healing, your complete touch of renewed life and strength and vitality upon all those who are ill, afflicted, and injured. Lift them up with your touch and enfold them in your embrace of healing, of growth, of vitality. Bring forth your touch from heaven above into our lives, into this world, O God. Sustain and support all those who are ill, afflicted, and injured, and also inspire and strengthen all those who are attending our beloved ones, doctors and nurses and emergency personnel of all types. Favor them with your power, your healing, Chain v'chesed v'rachamim, your grace. Hear this prayer, O God. We are doing our part, and now it's up to you. And we all say, Amen. And now a little bit of the Haftorah for the day. If you have the Haftorah, it's page 1161. If you don't have a Chumash, you have a Tanakh, it's Isaiah chapter 60. We're jumping to just two short stanzas in, yes, what is a long Haftorah. We're skipping 90% of it. But you need to hear a few words from Isaiah. It's chapter 60. Kumi ori kiba orech ukvor noyalach zaroch kine choshek chaseretz varfelumim volayich yisrach aronoi ukvor olach yireh. Arise, shine, O Israel, for your light has dawned, the presence of the Lord has shined upon you. Behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick clouds will cover all the peoples, but upon you the Lord will shine. Literally, God's light is within, part of each and every member of Israel. I want you to see yourself as bearing divine spiritual light, the glow, the brightness. Raise your eyes and look about. As you behold, you will glow. Your heart will throb and thrill because you possess light shared by God ever since the creation of the universe within you. You are a source of God's own light. And now in 1163, verse 17 and 18, and this element is messianic. It's hopeful to the ultimate degree. Instead of copper, I, God, will bring gold to you. Instead of iron, I, God, will bring you silver. Parentheses, this is my phrase. God's giving us gifts. Instead of wood, God will bring copper. And instead of stone, God will bring iron. And then here's the next gift. And I, God, will appoint for your government shalom. Not only will you have gold and silver and all of your physical needs met, but your government will be a government of shalom. And your officials will be tzedakah. Imagine a government of shalom, and the officers and officials of your government will be tzedakah. The value and the principle of shalom will be within your entire national experience. And all of your officers will fully embody tzedakah, justice. Verse 18. Lo yishama od Hamas be'artzech. Lo yishama od Hamas be'artzech. Shod b'shever b'gvulayich. V'karat Yeshua chomotayach. Usharak tehillah. Nevermore will the word Hamas be heard in your land. The cry violence will not ever be heard, nor wreck and ruin within your borders. And you will call forth and name your walls Yeshua, helping victory. And your gates will be known as Tehillah, praise. Imagine in your community, you won't ever hear the word Hamas again. And when Isaiah first shared, proclaimed, composed these words 2,600 plus years ago, and he used the word Hamas, he meant it as wickedness and violence, threats against Israel as individuals and as a society. And I don't think that he intended to refer to the word Hamas, which you and I know so well today. So let's take hold of that double-layered phrase, Lo yishma od Hamas. The word Hamas will never ever be heard again in the ears of Israel, and literally Hamas will never be heard about again. That's the messianic element of this week's Haftorah, woven into the opening phrase from Isaiah chapter 60, that God has made each and every one of you and all of us as Jews a divine messenger to bring light and justice and promise and honor into the world. May we be so fulfilled to carry forth the message of Isaiah. And now we turn back to the Siddur before Hagbah, and in the Siddur on page 177, please rise on page 177. This is a prayer for our country. And again, grant me a moment, because my heart is breaking over the news which came forth last night that we Americans lost 13 members of our military. 13 members of our military who were at the Kabul airport trying to maintain order and safety so that Afghan civilians could be wrested from this war-torn place. So Afghan civilians could be given a place of home. And there are murderous people out there who are like animals, and they set forth a bomb and killed over 170 people, most of them their own countrymen, plus some of our people. And we remember them, and I know some names from the internet, and not all the names as of last night had yet been shared with us. Lance Corporal Karim Nikui, 20 years old, from Norco, California. Corporal Hunter Lopez, age 22, from Riverside County, California. Navy Hospital Corpsman, a man devoted to healing people. Navy Hospital Corpsman. Max Soviak, 23 years old, from Berlin Heights, Ohio. Lance Corporal David Espinoza, 20 years old, from Rio Bravo, Texas. Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, 20 years old, from Wentzville, Missouri. And Lance Corporal Ray Lee McCollum, age 20, from Jackson, Wyoming. Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, married, his wife pregnant, 20 years old. Page 177. Creator and protector of all, watch over our armed forces and all those entrusted with our safety as they daily put their lives at risk to protect us and others and our freedoms. Be with them in times of danger. Protect them, O God. Safeguard them from every hazard. Place your hand upon them, insulating them from attack, from bomb, from weapons, from suicide attackers. Insulate them, O God, from words thrown at them and from hateful emotion cast upon them by hateful and closed-minded and cruel people. Be with them in all times of danger, O God. Give them courage to act with honor and dignity, as well as insight to do what is right in your eyes. Favor all of our service members, our men and women throughout the nation, throughout the world, who are doing your will to bring life and safety to all. Fill us all with the gifts of love and courage, O God, that we may create a world that reflects your glory. May we each respond to the charge of your prophet. What does God demand of you but to act justly, to love kindness, Ahavas Chesed, and to walk humbly with your God? May the one who brings peace on high bring peace and prosperity to our world and keep us in safety. And we all say, Amen. Our prayer for Israel on page 178. Avinu Shabashamayim Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo Barech Medinat Yisrael Reshit Tzmichat Golatenu. Avinu Shabashamayim, stronghold and redeemer of the people of Israel, bless the state of Israel, the beginning of our redemption. Shield it with your love, spread over it the shelter of your peace, guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth, help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them. Crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land of Israel with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And we all say, Amen. We rise for Hagbah. B'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe livnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Eretz Yisrael, b'li Torah, hikego b'li neshama. Eretz Yisrael, b'li Torah, hikego b'li neshama. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Dun die, dun die, dun die, dun die, die. Please rise. Returning the Torah to the Aron on page 184. The Eitz Chaim on page 184. Eitz Chaim hi l'machazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chodesh, Chodesh Yameinu, Chodesh Yameinu Kekedem. Please remain standing for a moment. Turning to page 201. Page 201 in the Siddur. You remember this prayer, this song? It's more appropriate than ever before. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha. Barchenu avenu kulanu kiechad b'yor panecha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Kivyar panecha natata alanu Adonai Eloheinu. Torah chayim ve'ahavas chesed u'tzedakah uvracha v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. V'tol benecha lavarech et amacha et amcha Yisrael b'chol eit uv'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Yada da 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 da. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. It's been a while since most of you, have walked into our building. And of course, you remember what the building looks like. And as you walk into the foyer, on the wooden decor, astride the doors going into the chapel, we've got two boxes of artwork with designs. The one on the left comes from our history. And in early Genesis, it's chapter 12, 13, it says, and Avram, his name had not been changed to Avraham yet, Abram, and Avram traveled to the south. Jewish history begins by somebody's traveling to the south. That's a little bit of humor there, and also taking us back to our origins, Avram. And the light box on the right has this first phrase from Sim Shalom. Oh God, put peace and Ahavas Chesed into the world. And the pun at work is, of course, it's the name of our shul. But when you translate Ahavas Chesed, it means the act of loving, the process of doing kindness. Oh God, put peace and the process of loving kindness into the world every day. But in spite of the fact that you haven't been in the building lately to see the artwork, to be in the building, to shake hands and hug, to sit next to people, you're still part of us. And the greatest message of all within our Jewish tradition is that you see yourselves as contributing to the world with care, with devotion, with concern, with focus, with principle. Sim Shalom. Remaining standing. Page 204. En Keloheinu, en Kadonenu, en Kemalkeinu, en Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michmoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Sheketiru, Avotenu, Lefanecha, Et Ktoret Hasamim. Aleinu is on page 205. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kugoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kachol amonam, V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu noteh shamayim v'yoser haaretz u'moshav yekaro b'shamayim mimal u'shchinatu zo begavei meromim Hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efes zulato Kakatu b'torato v'dato ayom v'ashevota elav avecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mimal v'al haaretz mitachot ein od Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch leolam bo'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shemo Echad. In the moment, the mourner's Kaddish and those who are offering Kaddish are invited to rise, remain standing at this time. And as I mentioned earlier, we are keeping the memories of 13 American service members alive in our torn hearts as their families are shredded beyond description. And if you also know of someone for whom you wish to remain standing and offering Kaddish, please mention that person's name aloud in your own home at this time. As the congregation, we remember with love Peter Strinsky, Rosalie Rosenthal, Samuel Sass, Belle Guttel, Harry Schreibman, Jacob H. Zuckerman, Abraham Stein, Aaron S. Jaffa, Sanford Polanski, Jacob Koffler, Bertha Plotka, Martin Dreyfus, Bruce David Lubell, Louise Goldrich, Nancy Howell, Jim Quinn, Jeffrey Koletsky. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabah. Amen. Be'olma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'meru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabah mivarach le'olam ololmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'rechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran ba'alma v'meru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru. Amen. Let our hearts bring forth a message of shalom to all those who are mourning, to all those who are in grief. May our shared hearts help those who are in grief to be consoled. In a moment, we'll be making the Kiddush and the Hamotzi. So if you'd like to have a little bit of wine or grape juice prepared and a piece of bread, please feel to do so in just a moment. Some reminders, of course, as I said tonight, Slichas, 7:30 on Zoom, and everybody in show received the email with the information. It was the Shabbat Thoughts. If you've got lots of emails, just click Shabbat Thoughts, and it's the one that most recently came out Thursday night or Friday morning. I think it was Thursday night. Slichas tonight, 7:30, and let's see. Monday morning is Tanakh, Zoom, 12 to 1. Tuesday, Adult Hebrew from 3 to 3:45 on Zoom. Tuesday, Spirit. Anybody can join in. The topic is, how do we prep for Rosh Hashanah personally, individually? That's Tuesday, 5 to 5:30. Thursday, brand new, just came up with this idea. It's initially geared for children, but actually anybody can do it. If you want to bake a round challah for yourself, and it will take 1 minute of prep and 20 minutes of baking, here's the secret. Go to the grocery store and get a Pillsbury Poppin' Fresh canister of French bread, Pillsbury French bread, Poppin' Fresh. And I'll show you how to coil it. You need a greased aluminum baking sheet or aluminum foil. If you want to put in raisins, I'll show you how to do it. Literally, you just take the French bread and you coil it, and I'll show you. And that's going to be Thursday, 5:30 to 6 on Zoom. Contact me and I'll get you the information. Initially, I'd put this together for our young families to do with their children. So they would have a round challah for Rosh Hashanah. All you need is one canister of French bread. Hopefully you've got an egg in the house for an egg wash. That's Thursday, 5:30 to 6, Zoom, and I'll be sending out an email reminder if anybody's interested, contact me. And I think that's it for right now. So we'll conclude with Adon Olam and then Kiddush and Hamotzi. Adon Olam is on page 211. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Liet Nasa V'chefza Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra V'yachare Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch No Rab V'hu Aya V'hu Oveh V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara V'hu Echad V'yein Sheni Laham Shilo Lahach Birab B'li Reshit, B'li Tachlit, V'lo Ha'oz V'ha'misra, V'lo Ha'oz V'ha'misra, V'hu Eli, V'chai Go'ali, V'tzur Chevli, B'yeit Tzara, V'hu Nisi, Omanosli, Menat Kosi, B'yom Ekra, Menat Kosi, B'yom Ekra, Biyado Havkir Ruchi B'eit Ishan V'yahira V'im Ruchi Gaviyati Adonai Li V'lo Ira Adonai Li V'lo Ira. Shabbos, Mom. Thanks for joining in. Mom's here. We're going to make Kiddush together. Kiddush and Hamotzi. Gadi, you joining me on the beamer for Kiddush and Hamotzi? Shamarov Anei Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat Ledoratam Brit Olam Beini Ovein Bnei Yisrael Oti Le'olam Ki Sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai Et HaShamayim V'et Haaretz Uvayom HaShvi Shabbat V'inafash Al Kain Berachanu Yom HaShabbat V'kacheu. Therefore God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. And we can make time holy as well with our behavior and our mental focus. Savre, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagofen. Shmo. Amen. Shkoyach Adiel. Thank you once again for all the technical wizardry that brings us into people's homes and brings people from their homes into our shul. And again, it's good to see you, Mom. I love you. Good Shabbos, everybody. Lihitrot, until we see each other again, perhaps Slichas tonight at 7:30 Mobile time. And as we move into this season, it is my deepest prayer for all of you that this year be a year of improving sweetness and improving good health and ever-growing reassurance, ever-growing support and comfort. May there be peace, and may you be inscribed in the book of life. Until we see each other again, Litrot, good Shabbos.